So today we are going to be making some wafer paper flowers that I made for a style shoot cake that I recently had. I'll bring this a little bit closer. So all the flowers on here are wafer paper. The logo, the trim, all the sheets are also wafer paper as well. So we're just going to be kind of copying some of the effects that we did on here. And you can do, let's see if you can see this one here. This is kind of cut like a ribbon. So you can make your own like edible ribbon to go around the base of your cakes, even in a solid color like this one down here, or in a print like that one there. So I like working with wafer paper. I do a lot of buttercream cakes too, and they're much lighter than gum paste. They don't weigh down the buttercream in the cake. And they last, they don't break, they don't chip, they don't crack. So these are just some quick and easy kind of little filler flowers. We're going to make some of those. And then we're going to wrap. We got a couple dummy cakes that we're going to wrap as well. And so I just wanted to kind of show you the two. I have one printed here on the smart sheets and an image printed here on this is the premium icing sheet that comes on the backing. And these print beautifully, as well as these are the smart sheets that have that super smooth, kind of shiny finish. And it just depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing more of like a high-end wedding cake, I always like these smart sheets are amazing to go on them.
Can you do me a favor and hold them side by side?
I can.
So it's the same image. And
the same image. Can you see the shine kind of on this one, how smooth it is?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe kind of harder to get with the
but you
camera,
can see the detail a little differently on each. So it's always good for people to see that.
Yeah, both of them print beautifully. Both of them work wonderful. I just the premium smart sheets they're so soft. They almost feel like a real like photo paper, like a glossy almost photo paper. And they just take the print so well as well. And this has just a slight texture to it, the frosting sheets compared to that. So you can trim them as I did. So if you want to use this as trim, I just cut strips of it, and then you can use it like as a ribbon. And then I'll pull colors like in Canva or something if I wanted like a solid color ribbon or sheet. That blue there is a solid sheet of the icing sheet. And I just pulled the colors out of one of the images that I wanted to use and stayed in that color palette of printing a solid sheet and then some trim sheets and different color stuff so that it all matches. So these are super simple to use. You can just use a knife or scissors, or have a paper chopper cutter thing. We're just going to use scissors and cut and trim these. I'll start with this is the smart sheets. I may need to tilt this down.
Yeah.
And if I'm adhering this to fondant, I will either use a little bit of, generally on the inside of it, I'll use shortening to just try to adhere it to the fondant, and then to seal the seam, just a little bit of the edible glue. Try looking. I don't know if I've packed it up. I packed it up for SoFlo, and my things are still like packed up.
I know that feeling.
So I was going and trying to find stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, I still had the cutter was still in my suitcase. Like I'd gotten most of the clothes out, but so I'm just going to add a little bit. You can add it to the back of the sheet itself or directly to the cake. My fingers have ink on them because I've been messing with my printer, so that's why they're discolored. They're not dirty. So I have a little mini one here, a little tiny mini cake.
Hey,
and so, I know. It fits this size perfectly. And then the seam, usually I would use a little bit of like the edible glue that you guys have. But I'm just going to use a little bit of this seal the seam there. And these wrap around fondant so beautifully. And so here, if you want to cover kind of the top of the cake, I would just kind of cut with my scissors and leave it taller, so depending on the size you are going for. And put a little bit of frosting, or the sorry, it's a shortening on the top part. And then we can just fold these little pieces over and it'll create a nice top. Like that. A little bit extra for this last piece. Like that. So it really quickly can wrap little mini cakes. Trying to make sure I have that in frame there. And this is using the Smart Sheets. It's really flexible. It doesn't, as you saw, I didn't even have to spray that. It is a little more humid here in my office. So if you did have to spray it and soften it at all, you can use the paper potion for that, or like the wafer paper. But you saw how easy that folded. There's no cracking. There's no bubbling with it. It just sticks right to it and is super easy. It makes a great, like I said, ribbon if you want to just do like cut even use a knife to cut, or along a ruler if you wanted to cut a piece to make trim to go around the borders of your cake. You could even, if you had like the punches or the Cricut, if you wanted to make like a scalloped edge on it to go around as ribbon, works really pretty as well. And then like you can just take it and you would just do the same thing to adhere it to your cake like that. And then, you know, incorporate your top tier with the color it is. And that works really pretty with that. So we're just gonna make like some flowers and stuff to go on this.
You're off camp. You're out of range. You want to
I'm out of range.
Yeah, turn it down.
There we go. So for the flowers, you can use, this is the wafer paper, and I'll show these two side by side, and the Smart Sheets. So the wafer paper is super thin, almost a little transparent. You can, you know, kind of see me behind it. The Smart Sheets, not so much. They're nice, they're thicker, but they're beautiful for making flowers and taking color and stuff as well. So we're just going to start with the wafer paper, which is this one here, and then we'll move on to making some out of the Smart Sheets here. Sometimes I use my Cricut to cut out shapes, and sometimes I just use craft punches. You can get them in all different shapes and sizes to do different things. And then I have some 28 gauge floral wire. It's a really thin and white. And so what I'll do with that is I'll just start off by bedding just a little like shepherd's hook on the top of a wire. And then what we want to do is make the flower. Where does that little bar I was showing you guys earlier? We're going to make the little stamen that's kind of up. Here it is. This little black part inside the flower there. Super simple to make, and it helps kind of hold the whole flower and everything together, and it just adds a little extra wow factor to it. And so I'll just take little strips of wafer paper, and I will just use a little bit of either a food coloring or a color dust. I'm just going to use a little bit of dust tonight. And this is black. And you can use whatever color you want to make the center of your flower. And then I just use a little bit of paper potion. I should have put that in first so that it didn't spray everywhere. And I'll make a kind of paste with the paper potion and the coloring
Yeah, you're off camera. You may want to come in a little more.
Yeah, you just gotta tell me when I am because I can't see it. And so then we'll just paint that on the wafer paper, and you can see how amazing that takes the color right away. And we'll do both sides of it. This is why my hands are always 18 different colors. I haven't had a pedicure since we were in Florida. We need to go get another one.
Yeah, I know. I haven't had the pedicure since then either. That was fun. The things we do before we go crazy.
So now you can see that the wafer paper is completely black, and we can use this for a couple center pieces. So I'm just going to cut this down the center and cut it in half. And with the little hook part on here, we're just going to put this on, kind of put it through so that it holds on. We put the hook through so that it holds the paper, and then I'm just going to fold it over. And then just fold it over again, and then just kind of roll it on there. And because it has that little hook, it'll help it stay on there. So it's almost, we just kind of spiraled it on there, and then just give it a good squeeze to kind of adhere it to the wire on this part. And then we'll just come in with our scissors, and we're going to cut down on the paper there. I'm trying to get something white behind it so you can see it, to make those little pieces that stand out. And I'll make a bunch of these ahead of time so that they're ready for the flowers when I pull them through and they're dry. I don't know how the detail is on camera, but then you get all these little center pieces. And you can kind of just fluff them out a little bit. To make the stamen look like it's kind of open then. And so then, first we're going to do the wafer paper, and I just cut out a bunch of this shape here. It's 2 3/8 inch with the punch there. And like I said, you can do a cricket or you can just do the punch, whatever's easiest. And then we just spray them with the paper potion so that they become a little more flexible. If you want to color them, I kind of do the same thing. I have a little bit of blue here on the paintbrush. We could use this is a liquid, so you can see how, or not the liquid, but the gel, how a gel color. You just need a tiny little drop in with the paper potion. And so if I'm going to do that, then I usually don't spray the leaf itself because you don't want it too wet. And then you can just paint your colors on depending on how dark you want it. And when you paint mix your color with the paper potion, that conditions your paper obviously at the same time, so you don't have to spray it. And in a minute, this will be nice and soft, and we'll be able to manipulate it however we want to shape our flower.
Now, what do you like more about the wafer paper? Because you're using wafer right now.
Versus the smart sheets?
Yep.
And
this is
honestly,
right now.
Honestly, it's not that I'm going to do both of them. I like both of them. I've just been doing wafer paper longer, so it's kind of, you just comfortable with something.
Second nature.
Yeah. And then I'll just take a little tool. This is like my little cookie scribe tools, and I'll just start bending the um, petals however I want them, kind of rolling them around the corners. That one got some black on it, to just give the petals some texture, and you can see how easily that moves and holds its shape. I always love working with the smart sheets, and every time I do, I'm like, why don't I make more flowers and stuff out of these? So it's just one of those things I got to do more.
Yeah, I know it's hard to change once you get used to something.
Because when you know how something behaves and how it holds up in your humidity and all, after, but when there's another amazing product, you want to do those too. So sometimes I'll take like a little ball tool. Let's see if I have one in here. And I'll either do it in my hand or I'll put it on a soft pad and just give it some movement, kind of pulling those petals up that we just. So now you can see it's already taking shape like that. And we'll set that one down. We'll do just a couple more of those to put that flower together because you want it nice and full, so you want a couple of them on there. I really love how the smart sheets print, like how that smooth finish on the premium smart sheets is beautiful for printing.
Yeah, one of the major differences between the two sheets too is that me doing that? I heard it for a second. Is the fact that smart sheets are sugar free. There's really no taste to them, and there's no sugar.
I did not know that until SoFlo.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea
Yep.
that they were sugar free. When somebody said that, I was like, what? So we got another one. We're just going to do the same thing, bend our petals. So did you intentionally, like, were those sugar free? Did you have a lot of requests for those, or?
No, actually, it worked out that way. I had gotten the paper, I want to say like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And 9, time just flies by. And I didn't know what to do with it, so I left. I was in Vegas, and I do what I normally do. I spray one with paper potion, leave one, let it sit out. I always taste things. That's the other thing I do. Make sure it's not disgusting.
Yeah.
And it sat in Vegas, and it was fine. And then I brought it back, and it sat on my counter for a long time because I wasn't sure what to do with it. And don't remember who it was, but someone called me and said, I want to find a paper that I can make the paint your own palettes with and that I can paint on better.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I have this paper here. Let me send it to you. And that was the birthing of the Smart Sheet.
Nice.
History.
Yeah, so this one here, you can see I pushed on it a little too hard and it started to crack right there. And the other thing about wafer paper is that's no big deal. If it would come off, I just push it down a little bit, reattach it, and push it together, and you've just saved your whole little petal. That one will go underneath, and you won't even see it. Now it's back attached there. So it's very forgiving. If you get it too wet, leave it alone and it'll dry. So, and you can see how those curls, how it just takes and holds the curls instantly.
Now, how does it do with the refrigerator, condensation, humidity, things like that?
So if I'm doing them on a cake, I try not to put them on the cake in the fridge. Obviously, if I'm doing like the edible images and stuff, I do. But as far as the flowers, I usually don't put them on until either we're getting ready to transport or till I get to the venue. But as far as the humidity, they hold up really well. I mean, the icing sheets, when it's really humid, if they're not well attached to the cake, they can kind of start peeling off. So you want to make sure, like if I'm using fondant, I usually will kind of put a little layer of shortening on the actual fondant itself on the cake, and then lay the strip down kind of like you saw me do here, and make sure it's got a complete layer of it on that itself as well, because the humidity can make it start kind of peeling off if it's not connected to the cake really well. With buttercream, it's not as much of an issue because it kind of, unless you have a crusted buttercream, it just sticks right to it. And even when I'm doing a buttercream, I take my fondant smoother and go around the buttercream after I put the sheet on the outside of the sheet with my fondant smoother, make sure, you know, every piece of it has contact with the cake.
Right.
So now we have 3 kind of little flower buds here, and we're just going to overlap them. Use a little paper potion in the center to connect them. And that's our one that we tore a little bit, and then I pulled down just to show you how to kind of fix that. And we'll just overlap those, and so that's already what it's looking like. You got a nice little flower there, and so you can, I like to then kind of come underneath it and pinch up. And pinch it together like that, kind of from the bottom.
I love the way that came together.
Yeah. And
it
so then
like it has texture to it, like one of those fuzzy parts.
Yeah. And so then I'll just use my tool and I'll poke a hole because I kind of got a, you know, it's kind of a little thick at the bottom there. And then let's see where I sat the little, here it is, the little stamen piece that we made earlier. I'll just thread that right through the hole, and I'll actually use a little more paper potion and just wet kind of the inside of that so that the little stamen sticks to the flower, and then you can kind of see it in there. And then just kind of squeeze the base of the flower here to the wire. So I don't know if you can see.
Oh yeah.
How that's working there. And then just start adding them to the cake. You don't even really have to wait for these guys to dry to start putting them on your stuff, which is great. Unlike, you know, gum paste that you gotta wait forever and sometimes leave your petals and stuff overnight. Now we'll kind of do the same thing in the Smart Sheet so you can see the difference with the Smart Sheet. So it's got a little more textured side and a smooth side as well. And we're just going to cut out a few of those like that.
We did Wafer Paper first, and now we are switching to Smart Sheets.
To the Smart Sheet, yep. And so again, we're just going to make the little stamen like we made on the other flower, and that is, we have a little piece of wafer paper here, and our wire, we're going to make just a little shepherd's hook on the end of our wire there, and just kind of poke it right through that and lay that on there, and then fold it in half, and it's still a little damp from earlier. And then you can see how the shepherd's hook part is still showing on that side. So we are just going to keep kind of folding it over and just roll it in that direction, kind of tightening down that little shepherd's hook there. That just helps it stay in. And then we're just going to squeeze again at the base to make sure it's adhered to that wire. And then to get the little stamens, we just go back in and just go straight down and cut. And it was harder to see on the blue, but if you can see on the white, if it focuses, you see all the little, how you can see all the little pieces on it there. And then just kind of separate those out so it make almost like fluff it up a little bit. And then we'll let that dry while we color these guys here. And again, I'm just using the paper potion and a little bit of blue coloring. This is a gel color. You can use liquid color. You can use the powders. I use a lot of the powders and stuff. And we're just going to do the same thing and condition this one. And if it's too dark, you can just spray another little palette next to it and kind of try to thin it out, your color out a little bit.
I notice you have the big paper potion bottle.
Yes. Do you still sell the big one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And if you can see already how like it's just taking that color so well, like it really absorbs that color. You know, it's much darker. Even if we dilute it, it's still just really just takes that color right in.
Yeah, you're out of screen again. I mean, you're halfway in the screen, but we want to see the whole thing.
I want you to too.
Yeah, you can see how much darker you're using the same blue color, right?
Yeah, same blue. It just sucks that color right up. And that is a little softer, so we'll just let that sit for a minute. But yeah, you see how it just takes the color like instantly. Which is probably why it prints so well on it too. It just really absorbs the colors.
Yeah.
So nicely.
Because it's not translucent, you know, kind of see-through, it's going to provide a better back color, I guess is the best way to put it.
And we'll move on to this one. Yeah, it's like a sponge taking the color.
Yeah, it's the favorite for painting on, the favorite edible paper. It even has a sound to it.
Yeah.
Now, when you're painting, you prefer the rough side, the texture side?
I generally do both sides just to, but I didn't want it to have to wait too long to dry, so I was just going to do that one side there right now. And then the same thing, just curl up the edges however you would like them. Or curl them down on the side. We didn't color on this one. This does get a little bit softer with the paper potion right off the bat, I think. So it may take a minute more to kind of firm back up, but it still does it. And this just gives it a little, you know, the curvature and some flow to the flower. And we'll do the same thing with our ball tool and just kind of give it a little bit of I'll sit that one down. Yeah, I could see why people would love to paint on this one because it's almost like canvas.
Yeah.
Especially if you're using the rougher side. It
And they,
feels pretty just like a canvas, painting on canvas.
they use them a lot for the palettes, for paint your own palettes,
Yeah.
because they can handle that moisture.
And you see it's soft, it's pliable from the stuff, but it doesn't, it's not cracking. Whereas even like the wafer paper, if it was this is more, I want to say more wet. It does take the moisture a little differently, so it is softer, so it's not holding its curl quite the same. However, if wafer paper was this damp, if you got like this much color on it, it would be more like that one piece that we had that tore. Um, you'd be fixing it from that.
Yeah. I don't think you have to use as much of the paper potion when you're painting on it, because the
No,
way
which is sometimes why I like to use a powder, and we can do that with one of the ones over here. I'll punch one out real quick too, and you can use a, let's see if I got a blue one here. We'll try this lighter blue. If you don't want to get so much on it. You can see how well it takes the color, and that's just a little bit of dust without even wetting it down.
Sorry, that's my son. I didn't turn my phone off.
And if you kind of start in the center and pull out, you'll get almost like the lines. Can you see that? Kind of like
Yeah.
that would be in a flower, like the
That's
veining.
beautiful.
Yeah, so it's got kind of like the veining look to it now with that.
Yeah, and you can see now. Do me a favor, because I'm
Mhm.
curious. With the wafer paper, what happens when you do the dry dust stuff like you did? Does it take it the same way?
Yeah, so here's a wafer paper one that we have.
Are you trying to press it in more, or no?
Definitely, yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely isn't taking it quite the same.
Okay.
And you're not getting those lines kind of like you have on
Yeah,
this one.
it matches it. Interesting.
And that's, yeah.
Okay.
But it's still beautiful. I mean, it
Yes.
takes it well, um
It's
and so
always
with
good to
that
understand, you know.
you can curl this one. We haven't even gotten this one wet. And this is the Smart Sheet, and so it's already curling really nicely without even having sprayed it. And of course, like I said, it's humid here, so if you're somewhere really dry, you may still need to spray it. But this is curling great without even having to get it wet. I'll do a couple more 2 more of those, or we could even put the blue one together with that one. Let's do one more of the powder. I'm just going to get my brush just the slightest bit damp. Okay, you see that stripe effect that it gives it?
Yeah.
So I'm just getting it just slightly wet, but not trying to tap most of it off. So that's the striping that it does with that. And then we'll curl this one just like we did the other one. You see, you know, that's barely damp at all. It's just, you know, just a drop of, and it just curls beautifully and holds its shape. And then just to give it a little dimension to pop the other way. And then I'm going to bring these together. So just use a little bit of the paper potion. I'm going to put the darker one in the center. And a little bit of the paper potion and put this one on. And that's pretty.
Oh, wow. I love the way that painted.
Yeah. And so you could put your stamen in and you could just put it right here and have it just like that and stay flat on your flower like that. Or you can do like we did on the other one and just come up from the back bottom side and then just kind of push it. And then you can come up with more petals and stuff too if you'd like to just keep growing this as big as you'd like to go. But those two blue colors together are super pretty.
That is really pretty. All right, now show them together, the wafer and the smart, so people can kind of see the differences between them. There we go.
So this here is the wafer paper, the lighter color one. And this is the smart sheet. I'm really loving those two blues together. Those are really pretty. Yeah.
Wow.
So those, and they'll dry really nicely. And like I said, you can keep coming around it. These are a little soft because we did both sides. But you can crinkle ones up and just come and even attach them just to the sides like that. And keep coming around the outside of your flower just with kind of crinkle those up and then come along the side, and you could just keep building it out to get it as big as you'd want it. And yet it's not going to weigh down your cake like gum paste would.
That's awesome.
Put those little guys on the little cake, and so it's super quick, super simple. I did a whole bunch of dessert shooters, and so
you gotta show it again. You were out of you. There we go. Right there. Okay. Sorry, you were out of. You're going up again. Stop going up. There you
Sorry. Your screen must look different than what mine's looking like on here.
Yeah. Awesome.
Can you see the whole cake?
Yeah, well, we see the top part. We see what we need to see.
Okay. So I did, I was saying I did a whole bunch of dessert shooters. So you just like the little jars with mousse and stuff in them, cheesecake and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And these are great to put on them. I did them for the tops of all of them and just didn't put the wire in. So you can make them the exact same. I mean, like if we didn't put you could take the wire out of this one, and you can still make your little flower and fan it out, and it's going to look the same and decorate little to make it completely edible, and not have to worry about like the wire and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Let's see, these are These are some roses. These are made out of like the wafer paper too. And that has a foam center, and then just the wafer paper flowers around it.
Yeah.
But again, you don't have to worry about touching them and then breaking every time you bump something, because I bump a lot of things.
Well, let me ask you this. On the wafer paper, if you don't treat it with paper potion, will it get dry and cracky?
The wafer paper?
Yeah.
It won't maneuver. Like,
Okay.
here's a piece that hasn't been treated. Yes, it will. You can. I don't know if you can see there. As soon as I started rolling it, it split.
Gotcha.
And I think that probably depends on your humidity and stuff a little bit too. But even here, it is humid, and still it can split just the paper itself. So I always spray mine, even if I'm not coloring them, just a light spray of the paper itself. And I mean, it's almost instant that you can start working with it, that it softens it like that. I mean, it really is that quick.
So Becky wanted to know, you had that side petal flower that you were holding towards the end, and she wants to know how you attached it. How are you attaching it on the side? So you had two flowers there.
This one?
No. On the tube, I think it was a smart sheet. You had another flower that you took the petals and you held it up to it.
So like if I just made some of these, once this had kind of dried up, I don't know, even give it like 20 minutes and let it dry up a little bit, and this one dry up just a little bit more, I would either just attach it with a little bit of paper potion or a little bit of the edible glue. And start building it out, and they hold perfectly with either one. And then just, this one got really soft, but if we do like another one really quickly with it's not as soft, and you can see how you can just build them up. And these are nice just because you can make a lot of really quick filler flowers and stuff with these, which is nice if you want like a big bouquet. Even if you want to do like a rose or something in gum paste, you can mix the two. You don't have to do them all in wafer paper. If you wanted to, if you know your rose and your gum paste is one of your signature flowers, keep doing it. But you can do you can make really pretty baby's breath, lavender. I have a little tiny punch. It's kind of like this, but a little mini one, and just coloring those purple, and then just stringing them down that makes a beautiful lavender. I can post a picture of some of that. But everybody puts baby breath on cake, and it's one of like the most toxic flowers, and causes a lot of respiratory issues, and people don't pay attention to it. But you can make it so quickly and make all your other filler flowers out of wafer paper or smart sheets, which significantly reduces the amount of weight that you have on your cake.
And is it easier than a gum paste flower?
I think so, yes. Definitely for me. It just, I'm going to spray that one just a little bit to crinkle it up in the middle. Well, you see how quickly they can be done and how forgiving it is as well. So if I wanted to come along once this had dried up, and I could just start building up on the outside with these guys, those will stick. I could do a whole white circle around that flower, and have that just the inside, and just keep building up on the white.
I like the way, the flower itself that you punched out, it just kind of looks like a star. It's not that exciting when you punch it out, but once you put it all together in the way you it just made it, you smooshed it and it looked really, or squeezed it, it looked really good. It didn't look anything like what you started with.
No, and I mean, and just maneuvering it and like how we kind of take it, and this is a round one. I don't know how much time we have. This I can show you the. Now I got my thing stuck in here. A more rounded one really quickly, because you can do it with any shape, but when you start, there we go. I kind of want it to be crazy. This is kind of the rounded one, and so if we kind of do the same thing, we can curl these. You know, this is the Smart Sheet, even without getting it wet.
Yeah, it really holds.
Yeah.
That felt better than when you got it wet.
It definitely holds better. It's just a matter of how much you want to be able to maneuver it. So if I want to be able to pinch it in the center and really fold it over on itself, then sometimes like this, I'll curl them first and then come back and just spray the center where I want it to have more movement versus letting these get too wet that they won't hold their curl anymore. But yeah, this, you can see how quickly that goes with that. I'll do another one over here. And you could do this, you know, we curled those that way. You could do this and curl those inward. You could give it a little bit of depth that way and then curl it down too. You can do them however. And then we'll just put a little bit in the center there, even though it's colored because that's what my paintbrush is right now. And even that, if we just wanted to take our center that we had in that other flower, there it is. Just take a little bit off of that. Yeah, make a really cute little white one, really. And that took, you know, no time at all. And if I wanted to make it a little more pliable to bend it up, you can do that as well. And then just put your stamen kind of back in the center.
Yeah.
And that gives it a little more motion to it. But super quick. And I mean, these are great for, like I said, great for filler flowers, great for all of them.
Right. That's really cool.
So, yeah.